Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Let us continue our discussion on friction. See, in the last class, I introduced the concept of self-locking, and the idea is you have a weight lifted by a wedge. I told you earlier, for illustration, the wedge is shown very big. The actual angle is about 3 to 4 degrees. It is shown as 30 degrees for the easy visualization. So, the idea is when I remove the force P, the block should remain at the place where it was lifted initially, and when the force P is removed, normally the block will try to push this wedge out. And what you have is you have impending motion set, and you bring in the condition of impending motion and investigate whether the wedge what you have driven into the block is self-locking, and self-locking is a desirable property. You want to have it. Okay. And if you look at this, I remove this force P and draw the block as well as the wedge, and the block comes down. Okay. So, you will have a friction will be in the opposite direction, and the wedge also comes out. So, that is prevented by the frictional effects, and you have to indicate the frictional forces correctly. The moment you indicate the frictional forces, rest of it is straightforward. So, here we are investigating when the load P is removed, what is the condition of the wedge as well as the block, and the equilibrium of the block gives sigma fx equal to 0. It gives me this expression, and when I simplify, I get an expression for the reaction from the wall N3. That turns out to be negative. This is 0.021 N1. The negative value implies that the vertical wall must apply a pulling force, which is not possible. So, that is how you establish that the wedge is self-locking. Okay. And what contributes to self-locking? If you look at the angle of the wedge and the friction contributes to self-locking, and this is very well used in many engineering applications. What you see here is a tensile testing machine. This is screw driven, and the material what you put between the jaws is pulled by it, and it is rotated on one side, it comes up, and then rotation is in the opposite direction, it comes down. And what you need to notice is this is a square thread. Many of the power screws, if you go and look at a lathe where you have a tool post that slides, that is also activated by a lead screw, and most of these power screws have square threads. And for the purpose of analysis, this can be simply visualized like a wedge wrapped around the cylinder. It is very easy to analyze, and all of these appliances require self-locking. It is a desirable property. Not only that, in all these cases, motion is impending. So, this is the reason when you learn friction, but when you actually apply to mechanical engineering, you find many of the applications you have impending motion. People tend to replace friction by mu times n blindly. You can also coin problems where in some portions of the system, motion is not impending. In some portions, motion is impending. You should never forget that. And this shows a very interesting use of frictionless pulleys, and this is known as Archimedes system of pulleys. And important aspect is neglecting friction, calculate the mechanical advantage of the system. See, if you look at engineering development, you need to achieve things with what material available to you. With our minimal effort, how can I lift a very large weight? That is where the Archimedes has given this contrivance, and we will just go and investigate how do we handle this. So, I have a pulley separated, weight is acting on this. In general, I can replace the tension in the cable as T1 and T2. Because I have a situation where there is no friction, we can also investigate what should be T1 and T2. That will turn out to be T1 should be equal to T2. And from the equilibrium of the pulley, I have T1 plus T2 equal to W. And this is what I said, because I do not have friction, I get an expression. The tension remains constant, only the pulley changes the direction, that is all it does. And if I look at what is the value of T1 and T2 for the pulley A, that turns out to be W by 2, and this is the load that needs to be supported by the pulley B. So, pulley A supports W, pulley B supports W by 2, pulley C supports only W by 4, and pulley D supports only W by 8. So, you have a mechanical advantage of 8. So, with a small pulling force, you can lift a very large weight, fine. Let me ask, see, I am going to have a keychain and I also have a water bottle, fine. This is a 1 liter water bottle, so it should be 1 kilogram, fine. Can I support this water bottle with this key bunch? We weighed it yesterday, it is about 80 grams, fine. Shall we try that? Okay. So, what I will do is I will first tie this and what I have here is I have a peg which has friction, fine. What I do here is I put it like this is not safe, one round is not going to be safe, it is not safe. I put one round, even this is not safe. I put another round, and you see here I have only 80 grams supporting 1 kilogram of weight, and this is having a friction aids. It looks very surprising, fine. We will go and investigate the mechanics of it. To develop the mechanics, we will take a real life system where I have a flywheel. This is prevented from rotation by the use of a brake band, and thanks to Archimedes, we have a nice lever arm system. So, I need to apply a smaller force to apply a very large force in the segment BC. And the main difference between what we saw as Archimedes pulley and this is you have friction between the drum, flywheel and the belt. And the value of kinetic friction is given as 0.45 and you have certain geometric description. The diameter is about 500 millimeters. The thickness of the band is 1.8 millimeter and this is a steel brake band, okay. And initially the flywheel was rotating in the anti-clockwise direction, all that is very important. Now, let us go and draw the free body diagram. Before that, I also have another interesting animation. Suppose I have a braking system which has a very small length of the shoe. The braking action can burn this off. Intense heat is generated. So, it will not have a life. Suppose I increase the length little longer. Here again, it is slightly improved, but this also can burn off because of friction. And you have a sufficiently long shoe for you to affect the braking. And if you want to have a braking system to have a life, you should not only have just one shoe like this, we will need to have two shoes like this. This is how many of the braking systems are available commercially now. So, the angle of lap is very, very important. You can't have a very small angle of lap. So, you have a concept from a practical example, and we will look at what happens in the braking. Here the braking is more efficient because I apply a smaller force because of the advantage of the lever system. And as before, I will put the tension as T1 and T2. We do not know what are these values. And if there is only normal reaction, if there is no friction, I will have only normal reaction. And now we have to correctly put the frictional force on the band. Please understand that. The band is preventing the flywheel from rotating. The flywheel is rotating anti-clockwise. So, what is the direction of friction acting on the brake band? The drum is applying. So, it is anti-clockwise. Fine. So, I will have a frictional interaction all around the circumference of the belt. And if I have to analyze, I need to take a typical section out of it, and it is convenient to analyze it in a polar coordinate system. So, I will take a section at angle theta. I have taken it from clockwise, and I take a small segment delta theta. I separate it out, and I put the force interaction on this, and I should recognize that the tension does not remain constant along the length of the brake band, because I have friction. The situation is different. So, if I say T at one section, I will say T plus delta T in the other section. So, I said that it is convenient to analyze it in a polar coordinate system. So, I have the r and theta axis shown like this, and I have the normal force is depicted as delta n, and the motion is impending, because you want to stop the brake band and it is in the limiting condition. So, I can replace the frictional interaction conveniently as mu times delta n. Now, I will put the tension. This segment is taken as delta theta. So, if I put the normals on these faces, they will be oriented angle delta theta by 2. And if I take the tension as T on this side of the belt, when I move by an angle delta theta, the tension on this side would be T plus delta T. So, now we are equipped with all the forces depicted on the belt, and write the equilibrium equation along the r direction and theta direction. That is straightforward. Okay. So, the key point here is you have to recognize tension does not remain same along the length of the belt, because I have friction. And secondly, you will have to identify what is the correct direction of friction on the belt. These are very, very important. So, I use the equation of equilibrium. When I say sigma Fr equal to 0, that gives me delta n minus t sin delta theta by 2 minus t plus delta t sin delta theta by 2 equal to 0. Please verify whether this expression is correct. And when I put sigma f theta equal to 0, I get t plus delta t cos delta theta by 2 minus t cos delta theta by 2 minus mu times delta n equal to 0. And you know very well that delta theta is very small. I can replace sin delta theta by 2 as delta theta by 2 and cos delta theta by 2 as 1. So, when I do this, I get an expression like this: delta n minus t delta theta by 2 minus t plus delta t multiplied by delta theta by 2 equal to 0. And this expression reduces to t plus delta t minus t minus mu times delta n equal to 0. Please verify these expressions including the sign. There could be some small typographical errors. Please correct them if they are. So, what I get this, finally, neglecting product of small quantities and eliminating delta n, one gets delta t divided by delta theta equal to mu times the tension. So, in the limit as delta theta goes to 0, I get dt by d theta equal to mu times t. This can be written alternately like dt by t equal to mu times d theta. And if you look at the way that we have labeled theta and delta theta and other quantities, I can integrate it over the complete length of the belt which is wrapped over the drum. Tension goes from T1 to T2, dt by t equal to integral 0 to theta mu times d theta. This you can easily do the integration and get the expression as T2 by T1 equal to e power mu theta. It is a very, very famous expression. What are the contributing things? When I have this tension, the tensions are totally different and they are exponentially related. T2 is very, very high compared to T1. And what contributes to this? Do you find the size of the drum coming into the picture? The 500 millimeter diameter is not coming, radius is not coming into the picture at all. What is coming into the picture is what is the angle of lap, how much it is on the drum. And another important aspect is, it is also written here, when you write theta, even if the problem statement gives the angle of lap in degrees, please convert it into radians. These are all the common mistakes people do. They will know that the expression T2 by T1 equal to e power mu theta. You should not substitute theta in degrees, you should substitute only in radians. Only then you can evaluate these quantities correctly. And in the problem, you are given the force in the segment BC. In our derivation, we have taken that as T2. So, T2 equal to TBC equal to 50 kilonewtons. And theta is very obvious from the problem statement that this is 1/2 of the drum, it is lapping. So, theta equal to pi radians. And you are also given the value of kinetic friction. So, I can easily find out what is the value of tension T1 in this case. Any of the tensions you will be able to find out, and we want to find out what is the tension in segment AD, and that turns out to be 13 kilonewtons. Okay. Let us reflect upon this expression. See, in our labeling, what we have done is, we have cleverly put T1 on this side and T2 on this side, knowing fully well how I want to get the result. In our expression, when I write T2 by T1 equal to e power mu theta, the expression also tells you T2 is always greater than T1. T2 represents the tension in that part of the belt or rope which pulls. See, in all friction problems, you will have to identify the direction of friction from the physics of the problem. You have to visualize. You have to visualize it correctly, and if you visualize it wrongly, then you are solving altogether a different problem. You should understand how T1 and T2 are when you draw the frictional direction. One way of looking at is, I have T2 here and the friction is just opposite to that. I have tension T1 and I have the friction direction and tension T1 are aligned in the same way. So, what I have here is, when I use this expression, you must consciously label T2 and T1 correctly. T2 should be the higher value of tension, T1 should be the lower value, and it should be marked correctly on your free body diagram, looking into the direction of frictional force. And let us look at another application of friction is your belt drive in your common auto chakki. And what I would like you to point out here is, I have a driver pulley here and this is a driven pulley that is done by a belt drive, and you will have to distinguish between a driver and driven pulleys. Whatever the expression that we have got can be applied to problems involving belt drives. Here both the pulley and the belt rotates. The point here is whether the belt will slip, that is, will it move with respect to the pulley. Due to friction, there will be change in the belt tension. So, you recognize that the belt is deformable. See, even though we confine our attention to rigid body mechanics, we have relaxed it, brought in springs, okay, and then we have analyzed them. Similarly, in this application, whatever the belt that you have that can deform, due to friction there will be change in the belt tension, which in turn cause the belt to elongate or contract and move relative to the surface of the pulley. This motion is caused by elastic creep and is associated with sliding friction as opposed to static friction. Suppose I have to solve a brake problem or a pulley problem. How do I identify the friction direction? Let us revisit this. There is a subtle difference. You will have to recognize that subtle difference and then handle it. Fine. Now, let us take the case of a brake. The flywheel is rotating in the anti-clockwise direction and I separate the belt and the drum. Here you should recognize that drum is providing the frictional force on the belt, which we have seen just now. So, it is acting on this direction, and naturally by Newton's third law, I will have on the drum the action is opposite to that. And how do I label which is T1 and T2? I have already said T2 and friction should be opposite to each other. So, I will label this as T2 and this as T1. Now, let me go to the belt drive, and I am looking at a driven pulley. This pulley is driven by the belt. So, the friction is brought in by the belt to drive the pulley. It is a driven pulley. So, in this case, the drum is rotated in anti-clockwise direction by the belt. So, what is applying friction on what? The belt is applying a friction in the anti-clockwise direction to the drum. When I go to the belt will have a friction in this direction. How do I label which is T1 and T2? This will be T2 and this will be T1. The final interrelationship between T1 and T2 is same, T2 by T1 equal to e power mu theta. So, you need to identify, am I analyzing a brake, am I analyzing a driven pulley or driving pulley? You think about how you will analyze a driving pulley, take that as an exercise. Okay. So, in all problems dealing with belt friction, you have to be very careful in identifying the friction direction as well as labeling T1 and T2. You cannot apply the formula blindly. You have to physically assess the problem situation, label them correctly and then only use the expression. And suppose I want to improve my analysis of the belt drive, I would like to bring in the mass of the belt. How do I bring it? Then I will have to put the centrifugal force because of its rotation, that is the body force, and you have the standard expression. I have taken m as mass per unit length. So, mass of this segment becomes, I have m into r d theta. So, m v squared by r is your centrifugal force. So, that you are putting it here. Your final expressions change slightly. In addition to whatever the expressions we had, I will have an additional term m v squared delta theta, and this turns out to be, the final expression is T2 minus m v squared divided by T1 minus m v squared equal to e power mu theta. So, you can accommodate the body force due to the belt. If it is significant, if your operating speeds are very high, then it becomes significant. Then you will have to improve your predictions on the tension by incorporating the body force appropriately. And look at this example. See, you have to recognize it is very difficult to lift yourself if you do not have assistance from friction. So, he goes up, stays in place by friction, and this is a friction knot. There is also a special knot here, and while coming down he just releases that and he is able to come down at a controlled speed easily. Imagine I have a frictionless pulley, you put your rope and then you hold yourself. You can probably hold yourself, but you cannot make yourself to move up or move down, because you have to exert a very large force for you to move up equal to your weight. On the other hand, friction is very well used. It plays a very important role both upward and downward motions. And let us analyze the problem given here. In Western countries they call them as tree surgeon. They go inspect and you have very tall trees. In all cold climates, even if you go to Shimla, you will find very tall trees. And you can't climb onto the tree by conventional methods. You need to have gadgets available for you to do that. And in this case, a tree surgeon uses a rope over a limb of a tree to go up and down. If the coefficient of friction between the rope and the limb is 0.8, compute the force which the 60 kilogram man must exert on the rope to let himself down slowly. And obviously, a tree branch is of an odd shape. To make the problem simple, assume that the rope wraps to 180 degrees. I have deliberately given this angle as 180 degree. Just to alert you, even though the problem statement gives it in degrees, convert it into radians and then use it. Don't make a mistake. Don't rush to solve a problem. And what is the challenge here? You need to identify what is T1 and T2. And the situation is that the person is climbing down. He is just coming down smoothly. So, he is just having a force to hold it. Okay. He comes down automatically by his self weight. So, which is the pulling force and which is the holding force? The pulling force is his weight. Okay. That is happening on this part of the rope, and this is where he holds it. So, he holds this portion. So, this becomes T1 and this becomes T2. The moment you identify what is T1 and T2, the problem is solved. There is nothing else in the problem. Whole of this problem requires correct visualization of the frictional interaction and correct labeling of the tension T1 or T2. Rest of it is very simple. Once I have identified this, I get T2 by T1 equal to e power mu theta, and T2 is greater than T1, and you are given friction coefficient as 0.8, and theta is now written down in radians, and I apply this, I get T2 equal to 12.35 into T1, and if I use sigma Fy equal to 0, I get T1 plus T2 equal to the weight of the man. So, for him to come down, he needs to just hold a very small force of 44 newtons. Precisely the similar thing happened when I was supporting the water bottle of 1 kilogram with a key chain of 80 grams. Okay. So, it is possible. It is possible because of friction. And I am not quite sure when anyone is from coastal areas where you are accustomed to going in a boat, coming back to the shore, or if you have an occasion to visit the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, you go from one island to another island by a boat ride. And once it comes to a shore, the person will throw the rope and the person on the shore will take it and put it on the peg several rounds. And that is how the boat is halted and it stays in place and you can get on out of it. And friction is very well used in these applications. So, friction is very useful. It is exploited in many engineering applications. Okay. So, friction helps. So, it is a very interesting problem. I will just make this problem statement and you think about it. Okay. You know, this is a very nice problem which encompasses both a sliding friction as well as a rope friction. The problem statement is like this: a very strong massless beam is supported by a rope which is attached to the right end. The rope wraps over a rough peg. You have to notice the language. All along we have said that it is frictionless peg, frictionless pulley. Now we are bringing in friction. And to make our life simple, the friction is taken as 0.45 at all surfaces. And the question asked is, determine the maximum distance that the block can be placed from A. I have labeled this as A and this is hinged, and I have a hook here. I have a pulleys supported by some other means, and the geometric dimensions are given, and assume that the block will not tip. That is also very obvious from the way it is being connected. I have the hook aligned with the center of gravity of the block, and I have this like this. Can you visualize the physics? Can you visualize the physics? I can keep this block anywhere here. So, the block will try to keep the beam horizontal. We want the beam to be horizontal. Now, the question asked is, what should be the maximum distance that the block can be placed from A? Can I keep it there where the motion is impending? That's what is implied. If the block goes further and further, the whole beam can fall down. If it is towards A, then it can remain horizontal. So, you have to investigate the frictional problem very systematically. Very interesting. You have sliding friction as well as belt friction accommodated in one problem. Only if your concepts are very clear, you would be able to solve this problem. Let us attempt to solve this problem here. Now, let me draw the free body diagram of the block. So, I have the weight acting downwards, and I have a tension on this string. We do not know what is its value. It is acting at a height of 0.3 meters. And what is the direction of friction you expect between the block and the plank? It opposes. Okay. I am pulling it like this. So, friction will oppose, and I will have the friction force like this. Friction force, I have just put friction force as F, but we know very well from the problem statement we are looking at a condition when the motion is impending. So, I can also replace it by this one later, but we will have a look at it. And when I put the normal force interaction, I deliberately put it at a distance d1. I do not put it through the centroid, because you have to recognize the normal force is determined by the moment equilibrium. Now, let us write the equations of equilibrium one by one. So, from the free body diagram of the block, I get Fx equal to 0, that gives me T1 equal to F, Fy equal to 0, that gives me the normal reaction equal to weight of the block, that is given as 588.6 newtons. So, this is what the justification: at the maximum distance the motion will be impending. So, when the motion is impending, I can write F as mu times n, and n is determined to be W here. So, it is mu times W, that comes out to be 264.87 newtons. So, I know what is the tension T1 acting on this string. Now, you have to recognize which is T1 and T2. I have already written down as T1. Okay. So, you have to recognize that. You have to recognize which is T1 and T2 when you look at the pulley. And before that, I also get one more expression, so that I get what is the value of D. D1 is nothing but 0.3 times F. This is anti-clockwise, and then this is clockwise, and n is equal to W. So, I get this value as 0.135 meters. So, under these conditions the rope is about to slip. This is also given as a problem statement. Assume that all interactions are impending. So, tell me which is T1 and T2. Think about it. have already told you that as T1. I should not have told you that T1. I should have put that as T and then asked this question. Okay. Anyway, so I have this labeled as this is holding and this is pulling force. Moment I put this as T1 and T2, I can handle the pulley with friction. And what is the angle of lap? We can take it as 90 degrees, that is pi by 2. So, I get T2 as 2.0276 into T1. Since we have already determined what is T1, I can get what is T2. T2 is 537.05 newtons. And now we go back and find out what is the minimum distance d. The problem is very interesting in the sense it accommodates all that what you have learned in statics before we leave statics. I have the pin joint here, replace it by the two forces, and I have the block. The interaction is a normal force and frictional force like this, and you have T2. So, from this free body diagram, I can estimate what is the value of d plus d1. So, that turns out to be, when I say the moment about A, I get this as phi T2 minus d plus d1 into W equal to 0. So, I get d equal to this expression, and finally, d turns out to be 4.427 meters. It's a very interesting problem. It brings in sliding friction as well as rope friction in one problem. It makes you to think carefully and also gives you training on drawing the free body diagram of the plank, so that you have a good revision of your statics. So, in this lecture, we have looked at what happens when there is frictional interaction between the belt and the pulley or the drum. We have determined the expression as T2 by T1 equal to e power mu theta. We have noticed that size of the drum or the pulley does not come into the expression. It is only the angle of lap that is coming into the expression. And this angle has to be expressed in radians. And you have to be very careful in looking at the physics of the problem and decide the frictional direction, as well as label what is T2 and T1. T2 is always higher than T1. If you do that, the problem is completely taken care of. And we have seen that this is quite useful in many engineering applications like belt drive, and also for a person to climb on a tree, and even for our demonstration, I have been able to show a simple keychain weighing about 80 grams to support a water bottle of 1 kilogram. Thank you.